Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. In the Philippines, at least 29 people have been killed as a military plane crashed on Jolo Island in Sulu province. In a statement, Defense Minister Delfin Lorenzana said 40 people have been rescued so far. Lorenzana said the C-130 aircraft carried 92 people, including 3 pilots and 5 crew. Israeli warplanes have bombed the Gaza Strip, violating a fragile ceasefire with Hamas yet again. The Israel Defense Forces alleged the attack was in response to incendiary balloons launched from the enclave. The occupation forces have also shot dead a civilian in the village of COSTA, south of Nablus city. In Afghanistan, the Taliban claim to have captured 5 more districts in Kandahar, Badakhshan and Farah provinces. Meanwhile, the Afghan Defense Ministry says security forces have killed about 130 fighters across 7 provinces. Brazil has reported more than 1,600 deaths from COVID-19 and over 54,000 cases overnight. In Pakistan, the virus has claimed 29 lives and infected over 1,200 people in the past 24 hours. Globally, there are at least 3.9 million fatalities and over 183 million cases so far. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. In the Philippines, at least 29 people have been killed as a military plane crashed on Jolo Island in Sulu province. In a statement, Defense Minister Delfin Lorenzana said 40 people have been rescued so far. Lorenzana said the plane carried 92 people, including 3 pilots and 5 crew. Army Chief General Cyrileto Sobijana told media the C-130 missed the runway while trying to land. Sobijana said the aircraft crashed near a village called Bangkal in the town of Patikul. Israeli warplanes have bombed the Gaza Strip, violating a fragile ceasefire with Hamas yet again. The Israel Defense Forces alleged the attack was in response to incendiary balloons launched from the enclave. The Israeli army claims it struck a weapon manufacturing facility and rocket launcher used by Hamas. Medics say 1 man was critically wounded. The occupation forces have also shot dead a civilian in the village of Kasra, south of Nablus city. A military spokesperson says they were trying to disperse confrontations between Israeli settlers and Palestinians. Palestine's Ministry of Health says 2 other civilians were injured in the clashes in West Bank. In Afghanistan, the Taliban claim to have captured 5 more districts in Kandahar, Farah and Badakhshan provinces. In a tweet, the group's spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid named Panjwai, Fararud, Bahra, Kohistan and Kufe-Ab districts. Kandahar Provincial Council had confirmed the fall of Panjwai but accused government forces of intentionally withdrawing. Meanwhile, as the Taliban and Kabul's forces continue to fight, Afghan Defense Ministry said the security forces have killed about 130 fighters over the past 24 hours. Whereas the Taliban claimed to have seized more than 100 out of nearly 400 districts in the country so far. Pakistan says the US is leaving without settling the Afghan issue. Talking to the media, advisor to Prime Minister on national security, Moeed Yusuf called for a political solution. Yusuf reiterated that Pakistan will not allow anyone to use its soil against Kabul. The advisor highlighted that the Afghan government and the Taliban must come to a compromise. Yusuf said Pakistan is committed to durable peace in Afghanistan and cannot bear a civil war-like situation there. He also urged Washington and Kabul to recognize Islamabad's peace effort. Brazil has reported more than 1,600 deaths from COVID-19 and over 54,000 cases overnight. Globally, there are at least 3.9 million fatalities and over 183 million cases. Details in the following report. The WHO has warned that the world is in a dangerous stage of the pandemic as a Delta variant rages in around 98 countries. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says vaccine availability around the world is being outpaced by variants. Australia's New South Wales state reported a fall in new daily coronavirus cases following 2 days of record infections. Officials implored Sydney residents to follow rules so they could end a lockdown next week.
So whilst the results overnight are very pleasing, there's no doubt the impact of the lockdown has been evidenced. However, to keep that trend going, we need to make sure people don't give in and don't break those rules we've put in place. They're there for a reason. And yes, it's great, sunny outdoors. We'd much prefer you to go outdoors in a COVID-safe way than go to those riskier indoor settings.
The U.S. is set to miss President Joe Biden's target of vaccinating 70% of adults by July 4. More than 605,000 people have died from COVID-19 in the country so far. In Brazil, thousands demanded the impeachment of President Jair Bolsonaro over his pandemic response. The country faces the world's second deadliest outbreak after the U.S., compounded by a slow vaccine rollout. Portugal says it hopes to vaccinate a further 1.7 million people in the next 2 weeks as the highly transmissible Delta variant spreads. Whereas in Asia, India has reported over 43,000 cases and 955 deaths in the last 24 hours, pushing the toll over 402,000. In Pakistan, coronavirus has claimed 29 more lives in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry said the virus has infected over 1,200 people overnight. The ministry said out of over 32,000 active cases, more than 1,800 are critical. Pakistan has so far registered over 22,400 deaths and more than 962,000 cases. Meanwhile, more than 907,000 people have recovered. Officials say the Moderna vaccine will be available at designated vaccination centers from Monday. Pakistan has received 700,000 more doses of the Sinopharm coronavirus vaccine from China. Another 1.3 million doses are expected to arrive in the country on Sunday. Nigeria has thanked Pakistan and its armed forces for their support in its war against terrorism. President Muhammadu Buhari met Pakistan's Chairman Joint Chief of Staff Committee, General Nadeem Raza, in Abuja. The military's media wing said matters of bilateral military cooperation, including counter-terrorism, were discussed. It added that the two officials also discussed the prevailing regional environment. Nigerian Defense Minister Bashir Salihi Magashi and Chief of Defense Staff General Leo Erabor were also present in the meeting. They expressed satisfaction with the performance of newly inducted JF-17 fighter jets from Pakistan. The Nigerian military leader said the aircraft will be useful in addressing the country's security requirements. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed deep concern over the situation in Ethiopia's Tigray region. Around 400,000 people are in famine condition, with nearly 2 million on the brink of it. Guterres said a real ceasefire is essential to pave way for a dialogue leading to a political solution. He noted that the presence of foreign troops is an aggravating factor for confrontation. The Secretary General called for a full humanitarian access to the whole territory. He termed the destruction of civilian infrastructure totally unacceptable. Earlier, the UN warned that the conflict could rapidly flare again in Tigray amid the presence of foreign troops. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has opened a strategic naval base on the Mediterranean Sea to secure shipping lines. In a statement, the presidency said the base will focus on securing the country's northern and western fronts. The base lies some 160 miles west of Alexandria towards the border with Libya. State media said it includes an airstrip and a 1,000-meter-long pier. The inaugural ceremony was attended by Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Egypt has 3 other naval bases in the Mediterranean and 1 in the Red Sea. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has condemned New York prosecutors over charges against his company and financial advisor. The Trump Organization and its chief financial officer have pleaded not guilty to tax fraud. Addressing thousands of supporters in Sarasota, Florida, Trump alleged a prosecutorial misconduct. He accused authorities of politically victimizing his family, employees, and company. Trump denounced President Joe Biden's policies and repeated his claims of fraud in the 2020 election. The former president urged his supporters to back Republicans in their bid to regain control of Congress next year. President Joe Biden has directed U.S. intelligence agencies to investigate the latest ransomware attack. The colossal attack hit hundreds of American businesses and led to suspicions of Russian gang involvement. Talking to reporters in Michigan, Biden said the government is not certain who is behind the attack. He said the initial thinking is that it is not the Russian government. However, the president reiterated that Washington will respond if the investigation points to Moscow.
The fact is that I've directed the intelligence community to give me a deep dive on what's happened, and I'll know better tomorrow. And if it is either with the knowledge of and or a consequence of Russia, then I told Putin we will respond. And
you didn't tell him already, sir?
No, I haven't called because we're not certain. The initial thinking was it was not the Russian government. But we're not sure yet.
In the United States, police have arrested 11 heavily armed self-professed militia members near Boston after an overnight standoff. In a statement, the police said the arrested people were dressed in military style. They added that the suspects were traveling from the state of Rhode Island for training in Maine. American media has identified the group as members of the Rise of the Moors. The militia does not recognize American laws but professes to be peaceful. In the U.S. state of Florida, officials have temporarily paused rescue efforts at the site of a residential building that collapsed in Miami. They are instead preparing to demolish the building's standing portion ahead of a tropical storm. Miami-Dade County Mayor Danila Levine Cava says the demolition can take place on Sunday. Talking to reporters, Cava said the families of the victims have been informed of the decision and that they understand. Meanwhile, the death toll rose to 24 after rescue workers pulled out 2 more bodies from the rubble. Authorities say 191 people have been accounted for so far, while 121 are still missing. At least 2 people have been killed after tropical storm ELSA battered the southern coast of the Dominican Republic. Officials say the deaths were recorded in Bajaruca province after a wall collapsed due to heavy winds. Some flooding was also reported in San Cristobal province, prompting about 100 evacuations. However, the storm is slowing down as it passed between Haiti and Jamaica. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says ELSA is now clocking maximum sustained winds at 110 kilometers per hour. It is expected to move across central and western Cuba and head towards the Florida Straits by Monday. And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. More than 700 rescuers have arrived at a Japanese town hit by a landslide that killed 2 people. About 20 people are still missing in the resort town of Atami, southwest of the capital, Tokyo. The rescuers climbed onto cracked roofs and searched cars thrown onto buildings amid intermittent rain. Japanese media says about 387 people have been evacuated as of Sunday morning. The meteorological agency says heavy rain is expected to continue in areas along the Sea of Japan. It warned the public to be vigilant against further mudslides, flooding and swollen rivers. Canadian authorities have ordered the residents of British Columbia to evacuate amid raging wildfires. Officials say 176 fires are active across the province, including 76 that were reported over the past 2 days. They said more than 1,300 homes have been ordered to evacuate. Authorities noted the fires are expected to raise 100,000 hectares by the weekend. Meteorologists have warned of more lightning strikes that could stoke forest fires fanned by high winds. British Columbia has been recovering from an unprecedented heat wave, which has so far caused 719 deaths. The Brooklyn Museum in New York has returned 1,305 artifacts to Costa Rica. They were looted during the construction of a railway and brought to the United States in the 19th or early 20th century. More in this report. An unfinished tombstone, a large ceramic vase painted with beeswax, human representations, and ancient tools to process corn are artifacts from a collection of pieces returned to Costa Rica. It is the second time the Brooklyn Museum in New York City has returned pieces, some older than 2,000 years, to the Central American country.
The pieces were at the Brooklyn Museum because when the Atlantic Railroad was built and Miner Keith extracted the pieces at the time, we have an approximate. There is no clear inventory, but there is an approximate of 16,000 pieces that were taken out of the country. So when these pieces were extracted and reached the United States, Miner Keith distributed them to different museums.
Although the pieces arrived at the end of last year, the handing over of the artifacts was delayed by customs in Costa Rica. Since their return, archaeologists at the National Museum have been in awe and spent the last couple of months listing all the pieces, which only now have been displayed.
The important thing about these pieces is that we also have stone and ceramic pieces within the collection. What do I mean? For example, we have stone pieces that were unfinished or were in the process of being made.
There are still more artifacts from Costa Rica and Brooklyn and other museums in the United States. In the English city of Oxford, a host of events marked Alice's Day and the 150th anniversary of Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass. Alice's Day is a festival held every year to celebrate all things Alice in Wonderworld. A street theatre featuring a giant puppet of Alice and talking flowers attracted young visitors to share the magic of Carroll's creations. Some events were held online to allow participation in line with England's COVID-19 restrictions. Lewis Carroll was a lecturer in mathematics at Oxford's Christ Church. According to the university, his stories incorporate some of the animals, friends, and places from around the city. Published in December 1871, Through the Looking Glass tells of Carroll's much-loved heroine, Alice. She goes through a mirror and then travels back in time to help her friend, the flamboyant Mad Hatter. A sequel to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, it is known as the first of Alice's stories to have gained popularity. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.